Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and the series of recordings of making a pipe organ from scratch. I'm in the iconic Abbey Road studios today. We're recording the Richter seasons, the Vivaldi seasons, and I brought in one of my harpsichords. This is a new acquisition of mine. It's made by Michael Johnson, my good mate Michael Johnson, in 2013. At some point, once we've finished this organ, I think I might do some harpsichord making videos, something different. Anyway, we're now well over halfway through the organ now, and we're on to the Drawstop action. So I look forward to you joining me on this section of the building of a small pipe organ. I hope you enjoy. Okay, the Drawstop action. For those of you who don't know, you have to make a link from the Drawstop knob, which is what you pull to pull the stop, to activate that stop, down to the wind chest via a linkage system. And this is what this process is. I'm going to start by making the rails or the platforms for the ball races which will hold the trundles being the vertical rods which take the link from the level of the keyboard down to the wind chest. This will all become apparent as we move through this video. So a ball race is a captivated collection of ball bearings which will go into these holes. This is the clearance hole for the bolt that will hold the ball race in place. Just pine this, it doesn't need to be strong because the ball race doesn't move in the hole. The ball bearings do the job within the race. And when I add this to the end, either end of the trundle, this will become apparent. Then we've got to fix it to the casework, the inside of the casework. It's a bit of a spoiler here. That rail there, that the horizontal rail, is the support for the keyboard, and that will come up in the next video, which when we do the key action. So we've got to attach the top rail to the level just above the keyboard, which is this one. I'm using an angle drill here because I can't fit a full-size drill into the gap. I try to use machines when screwing as much as possible because I do have problems with tendonitis, and it makes things easier. And then we put the lower platform into the side of the wind chest, which will take the weight of the trundles. So with those fitted to the instrument, we can move on and make the trundles themselves. So this is made by with the 12mm mild steel bright steel metal. It comes finished in a sort of shiny finish, you can see. So we're just cutting the trundles to length on the bandsaw, and then the arms. You have one arm at the top and one arm at the bottom at right angles, so you'll change the length through 90 degrees. I'll just speed this up. I've got 3 arms of one length and 3 arms of the other, and then you have a shorter arm at the bottom, which the ratio will mean that the movement on the Drawstop rod will be more than where it is at the wind chest. There's about a 50mm movement on the Drawstop knob and a 60mm movement on the wind chest on the slide. And I've got a dedicated grinding wheel for doing this. Normally you'd only use these wheels for sharpening tools and things, not for mild steel, but This is, as I say, a dedicated wheel. I'm just grinding the arc of the same diameter of the rod. It's not precise. It's really because you're going to weld it, so just want to get it as close as possible. Wearing gloves because obviously this steel heats up considerably. This process, and then we'll just clean up the other end on the belt sander and put a little chamfer on all the edges. Make sure on those sharp edges you can catch yourself on. Also looks nice. So we'll work our way through all 6 arms. And then put a chamfer on each end of the trundles. So now we've got to drill the holes or the threaded holes for the capturing the ball races at each end of the trundles. So I've sped this. This is at 2 times real speed. So that drill won't be moving that fast. You tend to use a much lower speed on metal than you do on wood. This is just mild steel, so this is easy for this drill. Then we'll cut the holes for the end of the linkage systems for the arms. This is called a center drill. It just finds the center before we actually drill. This won't go all the way through. This will just find the center for the drill itself. So then we put a little bit of lubrication on the drill. And all the way through. This is just a 5mm drill. Then we've got to thread the hole in the end of the trundles to take the bolt to hold the ball race. So this is the same way we did the trundle in the soundboard for the schwimmer, if you remember the arms on the schwimmer, the floating pan under the soundboard. These are just 4mm bolts, so you just take it easy because you can snap these taps, and if you do, it's virtually impossible to get out. You just take your time, bit of lubrication. So we've done all 6 holes, and then we add the ball races. So we've got a little bolt here with a little locking washer just to hold it in place. And that captures that nicely. So that will go in the holes that we drilled at the beginning of the video. And for those of you who don't know, these are called ball races, because the race are the circular collar which holds the ball bearings in place. These are actually enclosed, you can't see the balls on these ones, so it doesn't really matter, you don't want dust getting in there though. Now we move on to welding on the arms to the trundle. Now, I'm not a great welder, I've never have been. I don't do it often enough really to get really good at it, but what I do is hopefully effective. It's not very pretty, but it does the job. I've always been meaning to one day go on a welding course, but I think I'm probably a bit long in the tooth to do that now. I move between MIG welding and arc welding. My MIG welder is out of action at the moment, so I'm actually doing arc welding. Arc welding is other people call it stick welding. It's you don't need gas. The stick does the job that gas does on a MIG welder. It's a bit more reliable. This I find a bit more aggressive. It's arc welding for this sort of small work, but actually it works fine. I don't want to zoom in too much on this because it's not pretty, but you can get the idea. It's effective. It's not a bit blurred, but you get the idea. It's not too much. That's not going anywhere. And you do both sides. Make sure. And that's a little magnet, a little red plate there is a magnet that holds it at right angles. There you go, that's not pretty but effective. Do the other side. It's quite enjoyable this, it's great technology. As I say, I've always fancied doing this properly, a much better standard, but I really can't justify it. I do so little welding. But it's another part of it makes organ building so varied and interesting. You do all sorts. That's one of the reasons I love it. So there it is. We put the trundles into their holes, respective holes. You've got the long arms at the bottom and the short arms at the top. The long arms at the top, the short arms at the bottom. And these ball races don't have to move very much at all. As you can see, they're just a quarter of a turn, if that. When you pull the drawstop knob out. And there they are, ready to go. There's no movement, there's no friction on there at all, which makes the action of the drawstop. So now we've got to make the link from the drawstop knob to those arms that you just saw. So we're going to make some oak rods to make the link. So back on the planer, we'll face an edge. And then we've got to make a link which, it's a staggered link, it's a dog leg if you want, because the middle three of these drawstops is the 4 foot, so you've got 8 foot on the left, 4 foot in the middle and the 2 foot on the right. The middle one goes directly to the arms, but the 8 foot and the 2 foot have to be rerouted, and you'll see, and this is what I'm doing here. These are little blocks that will move the rod that comes through from the knob down to the level of the arm, and on the end of these arms will be some universal joints, which you'll see in a minute. So we're just gluing up these blocks,
to offset the 8-foot and the 4-foot knobs. That's one done. That's just these are just glued. And then we need to attach the universal joint. So what I'm going to do is to put some threaded rod into the end of these rods. We're using a very simple jig just to get the centre of the rod. We'll drill down to the right depth with a long series bit, and that's about 1 millimetre less and thinner than the 5mm threaded rod. Then we'll put the threaded rod into the drill, leaving the right amount of length showing, so you can just screw it in right down to the chuck, using the chuck as the depth stop. Might want to put a little bit of candle grease on that, yeah. So that's going in, you can see 2 or 3 inches, that's not going anywhere. And that leaves about 15mm showing, which will be enough to attach the universal ball joint. There it is. These joints are used in linkage systems in the cars and steering racks and things like that. But they're perfect for this. They take up any slack or any tolerances. And you want as little friction on them, obviously, so there's no friction on that ball joint there at all. Ideal for the job. So now we're just going to fit the rods to those holes that we cut when in the last video, the square holes we cut in the casework, so that they're just a gliding fit, and not too tight and not too loose. You really want a nice fit, because if they're loose they just rattle about and make a noise. It's just annoying when you pull the stop knob out. So here we are, making up the linkage for the offset, the 8-foot and the 2-foot. You'll see when they go in the instrument, see what I mean, but this is just diverting them because they don't line up with those metal arms. Apart from the middle one, the 4-foot, which is just one continuous rod. We'll do that now. We'll put them in the instrument and you'll see what I mean. So there's the 8-foot going in with the offset blocks. Now that lines up with that arm. And then the 4-foot, which doesn't need anything on it, it goes directly to the arm. And then the 2-foot will go the other way. And lines up with the arm, which is higher, like that. This is where these ball joints are so good, because they take up any small tolerances. Now there's very little friction on there at all, which is what you need, because there's quite a lot of friction on the wind chest where the slide goes in between the table and the upper board. So you want as little friction on this at this end of the linkage as possible. So we'll just secure those with some nuts. These are conventional nuts at the moment. When it comes to it, when I put it all back together again for the last time, these will be locking nuts on here, so they don't work loose. So that's the top linkage done. So now what we've got to do is do the bottom linkage where at the wind chest level. So what I've got here is just a lump of metal keeping that arm square to the end of the wind chest, and underneath is the slide. So we put a little packing piece in here, and I've got a little pin there, the same diameter as the pin that will go in. I'll knock that down onto that slide, the plastic slide, making a mark so I know where to make the opening for to take the pin. Now I can't just put a hole in here because of the arc, of the movement of the arc, so we've got to put a slight slot in. So I'll cut 2 holes either side of that mark I've just made, the same diameter as that pin. So that mark I made is the middle of these 2 holes. And then I've got to just open up these 2 holes, turn it into a slot. And I'll just do that with the chisel. Again, you want a nice sliding fit so the pin will go into this slot. I mean, not too tight, not too loose. This perspex, I think I talked about this when I made the soundboard or wind chest. It's perfect for this. I mean, people may frown upon using plastic, but actually it's totally indestructible, which is just what you need for a slide. You don't want any drama at all. You want it to stay stable. And now that will have a little bit more work on that. It's just a little bit tight, but I will file that out so that it's a nice sliding fit. So now we can weld the pins into the the lower arms. Just a spot weld we'll do on this. That's all that's required. And then we've got to start attach the stop knob into the end of the rod. Again, using a similar jig to the threaded rod to find the centre of the rod. And I'm going to use these lovely walnut knobs that I have made up by a chap up in the Midlands and near Birmingham in the Midlands in England. This chap Steve Jones is brilliant. If you look him up on YouTube, well, actually YouTube, on Instagram and Facebook, the wood turners. He's a production turner. He does all my stop knobs. Anyway, they're made out of this lovely walnut that's going to go with the keyboard, and there's the linkage working. So as you pull out the knob, the slide moves, and it's on. It's there, on, off, on, off. So the holes either line up or they don't for obvious reasons. It's either the wind gets through, it doesn't get through. So a very simple system, but there it is. There's the Drawstop action done. The next video will be the key action, and I look forward to seeing you then.